Here with Jimmy Lennon Jr. Jimmy, talk to us about this event. Talk to us about tomorrow's big event.
Yeah, well, the StubHub Center in Carson is one of my favorite venues. It's outdoor. Every seat is great. There's a lot of noise, a lot of crowd always, and we have good fights. You know, really good fights for fans to see. You know, we've had some long fights lately. Tomorrow night's fights, they're going to be knockouts. I really think we have a lot of power punchers. It's going to be a lot of action. So, you know, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking for that.
And how does the voice do after making those announcements, those ring announcements?
Fortunately, I had a microphone, didn't have to do it. Didn't have to scream it too much, but it's okay.
What do you think about Keith Thurman? A lot of people are talking about this kid being really charismatic. He's exciting, and he knocks fighters out.
Yes, he's a real fan pleaser. You know, he's an action fighter. He knocks fighters out a lot. You know, he gets hit too. He's willing to mix it up. So
right.
He's a fun fighter to watch. And, you know, there's a lot of talk about him being a real talent, a real great young talent, and look for him in the future. And I agree. And I think tomorrow he has a good test against a good veteran in Julio Diaz, who's definitely going to test him, going to test his punching power. And, you know, I think we'll learn a lot from this.
How long have you been around the game for?
A little over 30 years. So a little while.
Your father was also a ring announcer, correct?
Yes, he was. So really, I've been around the game longer because I've been watching boxing since I was a little kid, with my father announcing and just being a fan. And so I'm really fortunate to be involved.
And what do you think about Lucas Mattyhsse coming back after, you know, a very disappointing loss against, you know, Danny Garcia? A lot of people had him, you know, they were favoring Lucas Mattyhsse to destroy Danny Garcia. Do you think they invested too much stock into Mattyhsse?
No, I don't. I think that Mattyhsse is one of the most exciting and best boxers in the sport today. He had a bad night, and Danny Garcia had a great night that night, and he beat him. But let me tell you something, I would still pay to see Lucas Mattyhsse fight. He's an exciting fighter. He has a punch like almost no one in boxing. You know, he comes to fight, he's going to entertain. You know, I think the world of him, and he's got a tough opponent in John Molina, and John Molina I like a lot too. He's a big puncher, so, you know,
Is somebody getting knocked out?
Someone's going to get knocked out, I can predict it.
It would be a little while to believe that no one's getting knocked out in this fight. Talk to us about Omar Figueroa.
Yeah, exciting young fighter, really good for boxing. You know, he's aggressive, he's a power puncher, a young guy, and you know, he's been through some tests, especially his last fight, where he went 12 rounds. It was a war. You know, he won it handily
against the Japanese Arturo Gatti.
yeah, he won it handily, but man, it was a battle. And, you know, so he's a good fighter. Now, of course, the interesting story there, he's fighting someone who has beaten him 3 or 5 times.
5 times. Apparently, he made him cry.
Yeah. So, you know, we'll see what happens. See who cries tomorrow.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Jimmy.
Thank you.
Great TV.
Great TV. You're with Richard Schaefer, the CEO of Golden Boy Promotions. Talk to us about this event, Richard.
Great card. You know, this is like some of the hardest hitters. Actually, we could call the card heavy hitters. Exciting guys. Omar Figueroa is exciting. Keith Thurman is maybe one of the most exciting fighters. And of course, Lucas Mattyhsse, never in a boring fight. So great entertainment, and that's why I expect a sellout tomorrow.
It's a great card. You got Jojo Diaz, you got Yamaguchi from Brazil, who's another outstanding amateur.
I mean, it's just like top to bottom, a great card.
Now let's talk about Lucas Mattyhsse versus John Molina. That spells knockout, written knockout all over it.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be a great fight, must-see TV. It's going to be interesting to see how he's going to be doing coming back after he lost to Danny Garcia. But I mean, he's ready. He wants to prove himself, and he knows he's in one of the hottest weight classes.
Do you think that confidence will be there tomorrow night for Lucas Mattyhsse against John Molina?
Excuse me?
Do you think the confidence will still be there for Lucas Mattyhsse?
Oh, absolutely. I talked to him earlier. He's ready to go, wants to prove himself, really fired up. So I think you're going to see, as we always do, a very exciting Lucas Mattyhsse. And it's loud in here.
It is. Let's check it out here, actually.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman.
Guys are yelling.
Yeah, it's throwing me off. Keith Thurman. He's a guy who's exciting. He's a guy who has charisma, and he's a guy that knocks out people.
I think Keith Thurman is today, irrespective of weight class, one of the most exciting fighters. Comes across very well.
great kid outside of the ring, really the total package, and as exciting as they get. You know, when Keith Thurman fights, it is must-see TV.
And do you see this kid becoming a star? I mean, he's only 25 years old.
No question about it. I mean, the way the boxing world, the sports world is starting to talk about Keith Thurman. He really is very special in the ring, but very special outside of the ring as well. So I think he has a bright future. He's obviously in the right weight class. So I feel he has the potential not only to become world champion, he's the interim champion now, but to become a major star in the sport.
You know, a lot of people think Julio Diaz is going to get knocked out easily because, you know, he's been stopped early in his career. He was also knocked out twice as a lightweight, but now as a welterweight, the guy can take a better punch. He fought Sean Porter to a draw, I believe. Came close. A lot of people thought he won. He knocked down Amir Khan, and a lot of people thought he won that fight. Talk to us about Julio Diaz.
Julio Diaz is the ultimate entertainer, and you're right. I think he in the last few fights, even though he didn't win, he gave those guys all they could handle. Great performance against Khan. Some people felt actually he beat Khan. Great performance in the first fight against Sean Porter, and we all know now how good Sean Porter is. So that just tells you how special Julio Diaz is, and this is going to be his hometown, his home crowd. He is ready to go. You saw at the weigh-in, he's ripped, ready to go, really, really fired up. And he knows what a win for him over Keith Thurman would do. So, and Julio Diaz is never, ever an easy opponent. And I had a little chat with Keith out here in the lobby before the weigh-in, and I told him, be ready, because now, with you being one of the most recognized names in the sport and in the nation, you have a big target on your back. And these opponents, there is no such thing as an easy fight anymore. So you certainly cannot underestimate Julio Diaz. It would be a big mistake. And
let's not forget Omar Figueroa, another kid from Texas who has a really good fan base. Talk to us about that.
Another great fan base. All of those guys, you know, Figueroa and Mattyhsse, and of course Keith Thurman, they have really quickly become fan favorites because the way they fight, they are as exciting as it gets. And tomorrow night is the ultimate card to have all of those three guys together in one night. It's entertainment.
And can I ask you one last question?
It's showtime.
Can you just reiterate about John Molina and Lucas Mattyhsse? It was a little too loud in there. I want viewers to hear what do you have to say about that fight.
Oh, great matchup, great fight, tremendous opportunity for Carlos Molina, and the same as I said before with Thurman, a win over Lucas Mattyhsse would be doing wonders for Carlos Molina, so Mattyhsse has to be ready, and it's going to be an interesting matchup. I've got to run now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good luck. Well, don't really need an introduction here. Al Bernstein, famed analyst of Showtime. Talk to us about this event, Al.
Well, hopefully it's going to be an intriguing evening of boxing. You know, Lucas Mattyhsse coming back after his loss to Danny Garcia, taking on John Molina, who's a big puncher, though he's coming up from 135 pounds. That should be, however long that lasts, there'll be some big power punches landed. And also in the main event, Keith Thurman, who many see as a potential challenger to Floyd Mayweather and a legitimate challenger to him, taking on Julio Diaz, who, while he's a 34-year-old veteran, in his last three fights had a draw and a loss to
Amir Khan,
Porter, and then a loss to Amir Khan. But two of those three fights could easily have been wins for him, and I think probably should have been wins for him. So he's still performing at a high level. We're going to find out a little bit how Thurman deals with the veteran.
And it's interesting what you just said. You know, Julio Diaz has lost a couple of fights here and there. He was knocked out early in his career as a lightweight. He was also stopped, you know, 2 other times as a lightweight. But he's actually taken a better punch at 147.
Yeah, it's interesting. You hit it right on the head. He is better at 147. You know, he made the point to us today that he stayed at lightweight too long. Brief stay at 140 where he still had a hard time making the weight. And ironically, at 147, he's been a better fighter. And, you know, how he'll do against Keith Thurman, I don't know. And Thurman is continuing to get better. And in my mind, is just an amazing potential champion. And he's kind of the elephant in the room at 147 pounds because nobody really wants to fight him.
You know, as you mentioned, you know, Julio Diaz says that he's a better fighter, that he's able to make weight, take a better punch. Why is it that a lot of these fighters don't know this before? You know, having to make weight, struggling. Amir Khan made those excuses. I mean, I can go on, and eventually when they move up in weight, they do take a better punch. Why is that?
Well, I think sometimes it's, you know, there's that fine line. Some fighters, like Adrian Broner, should have stayed. He should have stayed at 135 pounds. He should have tried harder to make the weight, because that was really a weight where he could have performed better at the end of the day. But sometimes you're right. They need to move up in weight. Sometimes there's pressures put on them because opportunities exist at a lower weight class, and they think that's what they're supposed to do. But for Diaz, it's giving him a late career boost. This fight's very important to him, though, because even though we're suggesting that 2 of those recent losses could have been wins, you can't continue to put L's on your record.
And what about Omar Figueroa? He's an exciting kid. He's got, you know, a lot of fans in Texas. He's got a guy, Jerry Barramontes, who's beat him, I believe 5 times, and says that he made him cry as an amateur.
Yeah, well, they were very...
I think they were 11, yeah.
There's no crying in boxing, is there? That was when they were very young. I think the last time they fought was age 15. So it was a different time, certainly, for both men. But Jerry Barramontes is a very good boxer, and Omar Figueroa, coming back after a 10-month layoff, after his epic fight with Mahito Arakawa, who has had hand injuries. And so one of the interesting things about this fight is to see if his hands hold up in this fight.
And what do you think about Jojo Diaz? I'm pretty high on this kid.
Very good fighter. You know, he's a young prospect who is coming along, fighting regularly, as young prospects are supposed to do, and is very talented.
You know, going back to Keith Thurman, a lot of people say that he's got the charisma, he's exciting, he's got knockout power. Does he have the potential of becoming a big star?
Yes. You know, will he? I don't know, but he has the potential. He's a charismatic figure, a very clever young man, eclectic, has many interests, and he not only is a big power puncher, but he's gotten better and better as a technician in recent fights. And if I look at any 147-pounder and say they could potentially be a threat to Floyd Mayweather, in 2 fights, I think he could be a threat to Floyd Mayweather.
My last question, Floyd Money Mayweather next week against Marcos Maidana. What's happening in that fight?
Well, it's an interesting fight. You know, listen, the onus is on Marcos Maidana to show that he can do something effective against Mayweather. Mayweather's fights seem to form the same pattern. You know, for 2 or 3 rounds, whoever comes into the ring with them tries some things out. Then Mayweather adapts to them, spends the next 6 rounds winning in the pocket, right there, but he makes them miss.
It's like a magician.
And then by the 10th round, he's now in a position where he can coast, and that's what he does. So we'll see if Maidana can break that pattern.
Thank you, Al. Always a pleasure.
All righty, good.
Thank you.